The next day, we are at the port shortly after 10 a.m. At the terminal, we check in our suitcases. The ferry has left on time, and after 30 minutes we reach Madalena on Pico. Madalena is the largest city on the island with around 3,000 inhabitants. It is very quiet here. You are downright slowed down, as almost everywhere in the Azores. Tomorrow we have something special planned. Whale watching is on the agenda. But we have already found the meeting point for it. With such a boat it will go out to sea. On Pico we have booked a bed and breakfast hotel. On one side the Pico volcano will be visible, and on the other side the sea. The sea is very turbulent on this morning for June. The spotter on land has already given the position of a whale. We quickly drive there and wait. Some whales live permanently in these waters, others only pass by the Azores on their migrations. Then he appears, and disappeared again shortly afterwards. Soon he is spotted again, and we follow him. It is a humpback whale. This is on average 13 meters long and weighs 25 to 30 tons. It lives in all oceans. The best time to watch whales here is from April to October, when the sea is not so rough. The humpback whale is a good swimmer and can travel up to over 20 kilometers per hour if it wants. The food of humpback whales consists mainly of krill, which are small shrimps, and to a small extent also of fish. They find their food in water depths of up to 50 meters. The next day the weather looks good for exploring the plateau. The road, EN3, leads right along it. To get there, the navigation system suggested a special, short route to us. First it goes uphill towards Pico. The direction is right. Then the road became narrower and finally almost a dirt road. Now only cowards would turn back. Often no one seems to pass by here. We are probably very rare guests. We follow the path further uphill and enjoy the peace and view. In the meantime, early morning fog covers the Pico again. Finally we reach the main road. This leads, almost as if drawn with a ruler, only straight ahead. But be careful, we remember. Almost 250,000 cows live in the Azores and they sometimes change pastures. There are over 100 small volcanoes on the island. That is why Pico is also called Ilha Montagna. Our route leads past some crater lakes and green volcanic cones. Around Mount Pico there are volcanic caves that reach deep into the mountain. The island is also home to the longest volcanic tube in the Azores. The caves are dangerous and should only be visited with a guide. We will also go into a cave later, because we haven't been under the lava yet. Pico, the island, and Pico, the volcano, belong together. At over 300 m, it is the highest mountain in both the Azores and Portugal. In the last 500 years, it has erupted 4 times. In the first 2 eruptions, the lava flows reached the north coast. Around 1720, the south and north coasts were flooded. Another day trip takes us first along the north coast. The small settlement of Lagida was built entirely of lava rock. Initially, there were only 1 or 2 manor houses and a monastery house here. The remaining buildings are temporarily occupied by the workers in the vineyards. Others are used to process and store the wine that grows here. The volcanic soil here is well suited for viticulture. 20 years ago, the wine-growing landscape was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. In the petrified lava you can see the traces of the oxcart teams that long ago brought the wine barrels to the sea for shipping. There is also a small visitor center about volcanology and a wine museum. Just under a kilometer further on in Arcos you can see very well how the lava flowed into the sea. How to get to Salroque do Pico. The sperm whales killed at sea were pulled ashore here and cut up. A former factory is now a museum. It documents the processing of the animals. In the main building, further processing took place in huge boilers and furnaces. Bacon, meat, bones, and liver were processed into oil, flour, fertilizers, and vitamins. In the mid-1980s, the factory was closed because whaling was officially considered illegal in the Azores. Partly very hidden are the no-white houses with blue window frames. The whale spotter still sits here today. He tells us where whales are at the moment. Today for whale watching, the skippers on the tourist boats, formerly the whalers. At that time, the town of Leydes do Pico, in the south of the island, was the center of the whale hunters. 3 boathouses from the 19th century are still well preserved. Once upon a time, the boats of the whale hunters were deposited here. Sails and oars were used exclusively to hunt sperm whales, as they remained on the surface of the water after hunting. Other whale species would have dragged the small boats into the depths as they sank. The hunting technique has always been a manual activity, only with a harpoon in hand. It hadn't changed since the time of Moby Dick. It was also not entirely safe to hunt the big whales with small boats. But the life of the people here was rough and characterized by the remote location. Thus, whaling was a way to make a living, along with agriculture and fishing. Today, the inhabitants live off the tourists and the whale-watching tours offered. Small hotels, apartments, and guest houses are also available here. On our way back, we pass some vineyards again. The small laying stone walls protect the vines from the wind and store heat for longer. And then we have a sunny day after all. Time to relax or meditate before we continue tomorrow.